Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a job that is absolutely essential for building, well, anything massive. We're deconstructing the role of the senior contracts engineer. They're kind of like the invisible architect who designs the deal itself. Seriously, have you ever really thought about how something huge, like a power plant out in the middle of nowhere, actually gets built? We're talking about a massive, super complex structure, costing hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars. Where do you even start with something like that? Now you're probably picturing engineers in hard hats, architects hunched over blueprints, and yeah, you're not wrong. But before a single piece of steel is moved, something else has to be built first, something even more foundational. And what is that? Well, it's a blueprint for the business itself. Yep, every huge project needs a business and legal framework that's just as complex as the physical structure. It's a framework that spells out every relationship, tracks every single dollar, and manages every possible risk. And somebody has to be the architect of all of that. So, let's get into it. The person designing this business blueprint, that's the senior contracts engineer. And for this explainer, I want you to think of them less as a traditional engineer and more like a business architect. See, their job isn't just shuffling papers around. It's all about strategy. They're responsible for the entire contracting process, from the spark of an idea all the way to the final handshake when the project is done and dusted. It is a huge, end-to-end responsibility. A lot of people think this role is just admin work, right? Someone who just stamps documents. But the reality? Whoa, it's completely different. This is one of the most strategic, high-stakes jobs on any project. I mean, they're the ones shaping the deals, managing unbelievable financial risk, and basically deciding if the whole thing is going to succeed or fail. Okay, so how does our business architect actually get started? Well, it all kicks off way before anyone is even invited to bid on the work. It happens in what's called the pre-award phase. This is where they lay the entire foundation. And here's what's so cool about this part. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Nope. The engineer has to cook up a totally custom strategy for every single project. They're looking at the scope. What exactly are we building? The value. How much is this whole thing going to cost? And the schedule. How fast do we need to get it done? This process here really breaks it down. First, they're huddling with the technical teams to really get what the project is all about. Then, they figure out the smartest way to structure the pricing. From there, they build out the whole strategy. And finally, they wrap all of that hard work and thinking into the formal tender documents. And this is so important. All the heavy lifting, all the critical thinking, it happens right here, right now. Why? Because getting this blueprint right from the start is what prevents all the headaches later. The confusion, the arguments, the massive cost overruns. It's really that old measure twice, cut once idea, but for business. All right, so the blueprint is done. Now it's time to find the perfect partner to actually build this thing. And that means we're entering the tender process. You can think of it like a super high-stakes, very structured competition. So the first thing they do isn't just throw the doors open to anyone. No way. The engineer puts together a carefully selected bidders list. These are companies they know are qualified and have what it takes. And even that list has to get formally signed off by a committee. It's all about making sure only the real players are in the game. Now, during the whole bidding period, the contracts engineer is the one and only point of contact. They are the referee. If a bidder has a question, it goes through them. And when they give an answer, they give it to everyone at the same time. This keeps the playing field totally level and ensures the whole competition is fair. Okay, bids are in. Now the evaluation starts. And this is not a gut feeling thing at all. It's a super rigorous process. The engineer coordinates the whole review, often using a scorecard, kind of like this. You've got the technical experts scoring the actual solution, and at the same time, the engineer is dissecting the commercial side, the cost, the risks. The real goal here is to find the absolute best overall value, not just whoever came in with the lowest price. So after that whole gauntlet of a tender process, one company comes out on top as the best partner for the job. Now, it's time to make it official. We're moving into the award phase. So what happens is, the engineer takes everything, all the technical scores, the commercial breakdown, the risk analysis, and pulls it all together into one formal recommendation. Then, they have to stand up and present that recommendation to a high-level bid committee. These are the folks who give the final go or no-go. It's all about having proper oversight and accountability. And once that approval comes through, bam, the business architect's blueprint becomes a binding reality. The engineer then drafts the final contract documents. This is the moment.
All those months of strategy and deep analysis get transformed into a solid, legally enforceable agreement.
And let's be clear, we are not talking about pocket change. The contracts these engineers are putting together can be for absolutely enormous amounts of money. That is a staggering level of financial responsibility. You better believe that every single clause, every comma in that contract matters when this much is on the line.
But wait, you might think the job is done once the ink on the contract is dry. Not even close. In fact, a whole new and very long phase is just beginning. The engineer's role now shifts from being the architect to being the project's guardian.
And this is a really key point. That contract isn't just a piece of paper you file away and forget about. No, it's the living, breathing rulebook for the entire project. The engineer's job now is what they call post-award site contract administration, a fancy term for making sure everyone on site is actually following the rules they all agreed to.
And just look at this timeline. It really shows you how long-term this commitment is. They're there for the first kickoff meeting, they're there for the monthly audits and performance reviews, and they're there all the way to the very end when the project is 100% done and officially closed out. And that can be years and years later.
And that really brings our whole business architect idea full circle, doesn't it? The senior contracts engineer doesn't just draw up the plans and walk away. They stick around, supervising the construction of the business deal itself, making sure the final result is every bit as solid as their original design.
So it really makes you think, right? We always see the people on the front lines. But what other critical, invisible architect roles are out there? Who else is working behind the scenes, designing the systems and structures that shape the world we live in every day?